I'm Taylor Hannah. Welcome to Western Perspective. Tonight, Federal Minister Michaelia Cash responded exclusively to the issues we have raised on the Left Behind series.
What we are focused on is making sure that you have the necessary skills that employers today are telling us they need. And that's our focus.
Political experts who came onto our show on part one saying that successive government, both Labor and Liberal, absolutely ignore the interests of young people. What do you make of that?
I absolutely disagree with them. And I think the fact that we have a number of policies that are squarely targeted at our young people and that are funded by our government.
After 3 weeks' worth of investigations, insights and discussions on how to resolve WA's youth unemployment, the Federal Minister for Small and Family Businesses, Skills and Vocational Education, Michaelia Cash, has responded to all the issues we have confronted. Ms Cash has rejected suggestions that successive governments have ignored the interests of young people. Here is reporter Ivan Leung's exclusive interview with Minister Cash on a bonus part 4 of the Left Behind series.
Minister, welcome to the programme.
Fabulous to be with you, Ivan.
So the first response from the government over WA's youth unemployment rate, what is it going to be?
Well, look, in terms of the youth unemployment rate, it is higher than the national average, which is always disappointing, in particular as a WA senator. But if you look at the participation rate, the WA participation rate still remains incredibly high. So as a senator for WA and as the Minister for Employment, I'm really optimistic about employment in WA, given that West Australians are out there saying, I'm ready, willing and able to undertake work. That's a really good thing.
It's dropped to 11.2% now because beginning of the year is 17.2%.
Yep.
So do you see any time do you believe that it will go below the double digits?
Look, I have always said as the Employment Minister, youth unemployment across Australia is too high. And it literally hovers anywhere between, say, an 11.5% and 12.5%. That's why as a government, though, we have a huge focus on employment programs that are squarely aimed at getting our youth off welfare and into work. In fact, in the last financial year, I'm very proud that under the coalition government, over 100,000 young Australians got a job. That is a great thing, but there's still more to do. And that is why the newly elected Morrison government, we've said to the Australian people, we are a job-creating government. We are going to build on our record. Since 2013, almost 1.4 million jobs have been created because of the policies that the coalition government has put in place. That's a great thing. But we've said to the Australian people, we are going to build on that, and over the next 5 years, we'll get the economy to create an additional 1.25 million jobs.
Okay, what about political experts who came onto our show on part one saying that successive government, both Labor and Liberal, absolutely ignore the interests of young people? What do you make of that?
I absolutely disagree with them. And I think the fact that we have a number of policies that are squarely targeted at our young people and that are funded by our government. I'll give you an example. The Youth Jobs Path program. This is an investment by the government of around $800 million to get our youth off welfare and into work. It's a 3-part program, hence the word path: prepare, trial, hire. It's all about preparing our young people, giving them the skills that they need so that when they go into work, they're of value to their employer, but it also gives them that opportunity to actually undertake an internship. Because as you know, if you're a young person and you've never had a job, you're basically going to struggle to get your foot in the door. Because what are employers looking for? They look at their resume, your resume, and they want to see a work history. If you don't have that work history, you're going to have the door shut at that very first obstacle. It's the first obstacle you're now encountering. So we're going to prepare the young people. We then give them that opportunity to undertake an internship with an employer, And at the end of that internship, there does need to be a job. And the program has been incredibly successful of late.
Despite the fact that it's a bit of controversial, according to some other people in the political...
Oh, yeah, and that's normally from Labor and the Greens, who are quite happy to see our young people remain on welfare.
Shouldn't they be paid more during intern?
So this is a program that's targeted at getting them off welfare and into work. So in the internship phase, this is voluntary. You don't have to undertake an internship. But if you do, you continue to receive your welfare payment. But we also provide you as a government with an additional $200 top up that does not affect your welfare at all. At the end of that program, when you move into work, your employer pays you the salary. But this is all about giving our young people who, in so many cases, have never ever had a job and are looking at a long barrel down or a pathway of welfare. That's not good for them. We want to give them an opportunity to undertake an internship, to get that work experience they so desperately need and move into employment.
Approximately 13% of the workforce between 70 to 24 back in September 2015, according to the Productivity Commission, are either overseas students, backpackers, and immigrants. Do you buy the notion that immigrants steal local people's jobs?
I think they supplement our workforce. And certainly we have a number of programs in place. And in particular, if you're a backpacker, what a great opportunity to come to Australia, to get a work visa and to travel around Australia, but in particular, working in our rural and regional communities, picking fruit, doing some fabulous outdoor work that so many Australians just don't want to do. Our fruit needs to be picked. Our vegetables, they also need to be picked. If they're not picked, what happens then? So I think we have a number of programs that we are so lucky that we can, invite people to come here from overseas, and certainly I see them as supplementing our local jobs market and often doing jobs that, local employers, in particular in rural and regional Australia, just can't get people to undertake. But those jobs need to be done. I've often said as the Employment Minister, a business that has to close employs no one. That's a lose-lose situation for the employer who's closed their business and their employees. So we need to ensure that there is a supply of labour, and preferably local labour. You've got to look local first. But certainly if you can't get that local labour, you do need to look at other forms of labour. The working holiday visa, the old 457 visa, that's certainly the student visa, that certainly ensured that, those jobs were undertaken.
What about the argument that migrants steals local people's jobs?
Australia, I honestly believe, is the most successful immigration nation.
So you don't believe that's the case?
I do not believe that. In the world. This country was built on the fantastic contribution of migrants from so many different countries. We have a really strict immigration process in place. We abolished the 457 visa because we recognised that we could make it work better for both Australians and those coming in on those visas. But the people who are coming in particular on a skilled visa are coming here because the employer was unable to attract that local labour. If the employer is unable to get that skilled person, what are they going to do? Are they going to close their business? I certainly hope not, because that doesn't work for anybody. So to be able to then attract someone from overseas who has that relevant skill set, who can come here, add value to the employer, and in many cases they bring their family, they bed down in the local community, I think that's a good thing and enhances the workforce opportunities for local people, because the employer stays open and in so many cases they're able to prosper, grow and create more jobs for Australians.
Are you concerned with the kid-off phenomenon that we've covered on part one? that young people can't become independent?
Oh, look, I think young people can become independent. I think, from when I was growing up to where we are now, life has changed. Things are different. Young people, they do like to stay at home that little bit longer, and then often travel. They save up their money and they go overseas and they travel. But certainly, of course, young people can become independent. And the government is very much focused, whether you're a young person who's been unable to get a job and you're on welfare, or alternatively, you're a young person making a decision. Do I undertake a university education? Do I undertake a vocational education? What we are focused on is making sure that you have the necessary skills that employers today are telling us they need. And that's our focus. We are a job-creating government because we understand the best form of welfare is work, and we want to empower Australians, regardless of who you are, regardless of what your age is. We want to empower you to be the very, very best person you can be.
Okay, so that's been a discussion of part 3. Talk about blue-collar jobs, white-collar jobs, and what is a good job. Minister, what is a good job in your view?
Look, I think any job is a good job. There are some jobs that are stepping stone jobs into other jobs. So, for example, when I was at university, and I'm lucky enough to be someone who went to university, I worked in hospitality. What a fabulous opportunity that was for me because I learned to work really irregular hours. I learned customer service. I learned those, soft skills that, are needed in today's workplace. So any job is a good job, and it's up to you to determine what pathway you want to go down. And it's up to the government to ensure, that the economy is out there creating jobs, but also to put in place those policies to ensure that as a person, again, regardless of your age, you have the skills that our employers are telling us they need for the modern workforce.
Okay, so speaking about skills, automation is taking a lot of jobs or replacing a lot of entry-level jobs. Are you concerned about that?
I think automation should not be feared. Automation basically allows employers to get rid of the dirty, the dull, and the dangerous. And that's a really good thing. Automation also gives people that opportunity to learn a new skill, to be upskilled, because often when you're automating, the job environment or your workforce, you're actually having to upskill people because suddenly you've got technology and people still have to operate that technology. So from my perspective, whilst yes, automation will result in some jobs disappearing, the dirty, the dull and the dangerous, in many cases, it offers so many opportunities to people to consider jobs that, at my age, in a million years could never have thought of 20 years ago. What an exciting thing for young people in particular, a future where some of the jobs that you'll be doing in 5-10 years' time we don't even know about, but also for people who are currently in the workforce, to give them that opportunity to take on new skills and to do something different. So they're not going to be doing the same thing for the next 10, 15, 20 years. I see automation as equaling opportunity, and it's the government's role to ensure that, again, you can embrace the opportunities that automation brings. Are
you concerned that entry-level jobs are disappearing both in professional areas and also in retail as well?
Retail is only growing. If you look at where the job markets or the job industries are actually going, retail and hospitality, it is a growing market. Health and aged care, it is a growing market. And there are so many entry-level opportunities in those industries. In fact, we're looking for more people to go into, in particular, the health and the aged care industry and into those entry-level positions. So while some entry-level positions, yes, that they might be disappearing, other entry-level positions are being created.
Okay, so you say there's nothing to be afraid of?
No, absolutely not at all. What people need to understand is that as a government, we want to empower you to be the best possible person that you can be. And we need, as a government, to ensure that A, the country has the right economic framework so that businesses out there, because governments don't create jobs, as you know, it's employers who do. So we need to ensure we have the right economic framework so that businesses are able to prosper, grow and create more jobs for Australians. And certainly, since we were elected to office in September 2013, that's exactly what we've seen. Almost 1.4 million jobs being created. Over half of those jobs have been full-time jobs. That's a really good thing. So the economy is creating jobs. We have record employment in Australia. The participation rate is at a record high for the second consecutive month in 2019. So all of those indicators are good indicators. And then as a government, we need to also have the programs in place to ensure that Australians have the necessary skills that employers are now telling us they need.
Before we move on to education, there are concerns that there will be some people who are left behind. For example, those people who are not well educated, who are at the lower end of the spectrum. Do you fear for those people?
So what the government announced in the budget was a program specifically addressed towards people who are currently in work, but are not necessarily of the literacy level, the numeracy level, etc., that employers need. So we have announced a program to specifically focus on those people. We're a big believer as a government in targeted programs. So we're actually responding to your specific need. So we are aware that there are issues with some people in the community, and absolutely those issues do need to be addressed.
Okay, so do you believe WA youth, particularly the next generation, are ready to work with the machine, not against it?
I absolutely do, and our role as a government, again, is to ensure that our young people, but also anybody in Australia who's looking at changing jobs or upskilling, has that opportunity to do so. I think what's really exciting from a Western Australian perspective is that, as you know, we are the world leaders in Australia, but particularly in Western Australia, when it comes to automated mining. How amazing is that, to be the world leaders? And there are so many opportunities within that mining sector for our young people to go into. So I think that, there are great opportunities for our young going forward. The opportunities will be there for them, absolutely.
Okay, so STEM education, there has been talks of saying, okay, we should boost those subjects, but One Nation WA leader Colin Ticknell says that there aren't enough STEM teachers, there aren't enough STEM students too. Are you concerned about that?
Certainly we saw a decline in the number of students, over, say, the last decade studying STEM, but the government looked to address that now a number of years ago with programs specifically focused on increasing the number of students in STEM. But when I was the former Women's Minister, also increasing the number of women going into STEM. So as a government, we recognise that so many of the jobs of the future, that basic foundation is going to be science, technology, engineering and math, otherwise known as STEM. And certainly the education system does have a focus on that to ensure that students are prepared, for the jobs of the future.
But what about the education system itself? Although you're not the
Education Minister.
Education Minister, yes. But there have been suggestions of saying that some of the education courses or particularly schemes are out of date. Do you believe that's the case?
I think our Education Minister does a great job in working, with the states to get the right curriculum. My focus, though, is actually as the Skills Minister. So I focus on vocational education and training. And one of the things that we've announced as a government is a National Careers Institute and a National Careers Ambassador. And the reason I raise that is because it's so important that our young people, and in particular I'm talking here, young people in high school, they understand the opportunities that a vocational education can provide to them. Because I think what we've seen over so many years now is young people thinking, and their parents in particular, they have to go to university. And, you often hear that evidence, this young person, they didn't want to go to university. They weren't ready to go to university. So I've got a huge focus, along with obviously the Prime Minister, on ensuring that our young people in particular are aware of the benefits a vocational education can bring. Because what do employers tell us? Employers are telling us they want employees that are job ready from day one. That's exactly what a vocational education gives you. Why? Because you're earning whilst you're learning, you're getting that on-the-job experience, hence a vocational education, so that when you actually turn up on day one to your job, you can add value to what your employer does. So my focus as the Skills Minister is very much ensuring that our young people, their parents, and Australians more broadly really understand the benefits and the opportunities of a vocational education.
Let me do a throwback question. In 2016, Malcolm Turnbull came into the election and run a big innovation and entrepreneurship idea. Where has that gone? Has it disappeared?
No, not at all. And the government remains fundamentally committed to industry, innovation and science. And in fact, I am the former Minister for Industry, Innovation and Science in a slightly differently named portfolio. No, very much so the government remains focused. Again, though, from my perspective, say as the Skills Minister, the focus now is ensuring that Australians have those right skills to ensure that those innovative jobs, etc., that they're able to be undertaken. So no, we have a big focus still on industry, innovation and science. And as the Skills Minister, I work closely with Karen Andrews, the relevant Minister, to ensure that we do have in place those right programs.
Is entrepreneurship a way to go?
Oh, look, isn't it great that we look at you? You're the perfect example of someone who's come to Australia, who's embraced Australia as the land of opportunity, who's made Australia home, and you're an entrepreneur. It is great that in Australia we still are that land that if you have a go, if you're prepared to have a go, you deserve a fair go, and that's very much what the Prime Minister is all about. So I think entrepreneurship in Australia. It's incredibly bright. I think the future is bright. And it's a great alternative for someone who doesn't want to go into a 9-to-5 job and work for someone else to be an entrepreneur.
But failure rate is high, though.
Look, but that is what entrepreneurship is all about. And I think when you talk to entrepreneurs, they have a very different take on the word fail. They see it as the first attempt in learning. Do you know what I mean? And that's the nature of being an entrepreneur. You're not necessarily going to get it right the first time. But what do entrepreneurs do? I think one of those really standout characteristics for an entrepreneur is that when you do fail, you really do see it as that first attempt in learning. You pick yourself up, you look at what you did, where you may have gone wrong, and you're prepared to have another go. And I think that's where you then see the really successful entrepreneurs who, yep, they may fail and they may fail again. However, they understand that's actually the learning process for so many entrepreneurs.
So what's the future for WA's workforce?
The future for WA's workforce is incredibly bright. The future for Australia's workforce is incredibly bright. Why? Because we have a federal government in particular that understands that we don't create jobs, employers do. We put in place the policies that employers can lever off to create jobs. And that is what we are doing as a government. We are a job-creating government. But we also understand that for those people who are on welfare, we need to have the right employment programs in place to ensure that they're able to move from welfare into work, because we fundamentally believe the best form of welfare is a job. But as a government, we also know that for those people who are making a decision as to what career path they're going to walk down, or for those who are upskilling or reskilling, you've got to have the right programs in place so that they can have the skills that they need. So I think the future is incredibly bright, not just for Western Australia, for all Australians.
Finally, what about those young people who are watching this, who are scared, who are concerned, who can't find a way out in their view? What's your message for them?
The future is absolutely bright. If you are someone who is on welfare, you can call a job active provider, you can go online and have a look at the government's employment programs. We also have a fantastic website that allows you now to literally look at the different opportunities that are out there. You can pick a type of job you might want to do. You can have a look at the employment prospects. You can have a look at the salary predictions, etc. There is a wealth of knowledge now out there that is there to assist you to make the right decisions.
Minister, thank you so much for talking to us today.
Always fantastic to talk to you, Ivan.
And that's Western Perspective for this week. We hope you've enjoyed the Left Behind series. As always, you can watch the whole series again or read all the related stories on our website. Until next week, Ivan and Danielle, it's back to you.
Thanks, Taylor. This week's main news again. Centrelink's New Start is back on the Federal Parliament's agenda with a new inquiry into the payment rate, as calls continue for it to be increased. In WA, Premier Mark McGowan said an increase would benefit unemployed people struggling in the state. But the federal government claims jobs needs to be the focus.
And that's our news for this week. We have the latest on our website and Facebook page.
Until 8 p.m. next Sunday, have a pleasant evening.
Good night.